Hey, welcome to The Explainer. We're all about breaking down big, complex ideas into something you can really sink your teeth into. Today, we're jumping into the science of how we change, and believe it or not, an ancient story that's basically hardwired into your brain.
So, I know this sounds like the beginning of a weird joke, right? But the answer is actually pretty profound. It connects the absolute cutting edge of brain science with the oldest stories humanity has ever told. And, best of all, it gives us a powerful blueprint for how we can genuinely change our own lives.
All right, so let's get into it. And we're going to start with a pretty surprising origin story. This is not your typical scientist backstory, not by a long shot.
The main character in our story today is the Stanford neuroscientist, Dr. Andrew Huberman. But his journey didn't start in some fancy lab. In fact, he was pretty much told it was very unlikely he'd ever become a scientist at all. His path started somewhere very different.
You gotta picture this. As a teenager, Huberman was all in on the underground punk and skate scene of the late 80s and early 90s. He felt totally disconnected from school, spending his time in the, chaotic, kind of lawless, but also super tight-knit community of skaters in San Francisco. So what happened? Well, Huberman eventually found his way back to science. And he was driven by this deep fascination with why some of his friends were falling into addiction and mental illness. This massive shift, this call to leave one world for a totally new one, that's the first step in a pattern we're going to see over and over again.
Okay, so you have to wonder, how is a change that massive even possible? To really get it, we need a map. And not just any map, a map of our own inner world, our nervous system.
Now, Dr. Huberman has this great way of simplifying the brain's super complex job into these 5 core functions. So first you have sensation. That's just the raw data your body's picking up. Then perception. That's what you decide to pay attention to. From there, you get feelings, then thoughts, and finally, behaviors, the actions you take. This whole sequence, in this order, basically runs your entire experience of reality.
Now stick with me here, because this next idea is absolutely key. It's called interoception. It's basically your brain's ability to sense what's going on inside your body. Think of it like an internal weather report. Your brain is constantly checking that internal feeling, like agitation or calm, and matching it with what's happening around you to figure out what to do next. It's this crucial link between you and the world.
So, now that we have our map, let's talk about the part of the journey that really matters, the ordeal. Because real, lasting change, it isn't supposed to be comfortable. In fact, your brain is actually wired for the struggle.
We all love to talk about getting into a flow state, right? That magical zone where everything just feels effortless and perfect. Well, Huberman kind of throws a wrench in that idea. He explains that the actual process of learning, of physically forging new pathways in your brain, it doesn't feel like flow at all. It feels like work. It feels agitating, frustrating, and that feeling is a biological requirement.
So why does it feel so agitating? It all comes down to a very specific chemical cocktail. First, you get a jolt of norepinephrine, which makes you feel alert, kind of on edge. Then, acetylcholine comes in and acts like a spotlight, forcing you to focus hard. But here's the absolute coolest part. The reward chemical, dopamine, isn't released when you finally get the answer right. It's released while you're in the middle of the struggle. Your brain literally rewards you for trying.
So that whole chemical storm of agitation and focus, that is your brain's version of the trial. It's the ordeal you have to go through to achieve what scientists call plasticity, which is just a fancy way of saying the actual, physical rewiring of your brain.
And this is where things get really wild. This biological process, the struggle, the transformation, the reward, this isn't some newfangled discovery. It's actually a story humanity has been telling itself for literally thousands of years.
It's called the monomyth, but you probably know it as the hero's journey. It's this universal template for transformation that the mythologist Joseph Campbell discovered. He found the same exact story structure in myths from every single corner of the globe.
And the pattern is always the same. A hero gets called away from their normal, everyday life. They enter some strange new world where they have to face a bunch of trials that fundamentally change who they are. And then, finally, they return home, and they bring back some gift or new wisdom for everyone else. Sound familiar?
And it's not just the plot that's universal, the characters are too. You see them everywhere, right? The hero facing the challenge, the wise mentor giving them advice, the villain who represents the big obstacle. I mean, think about it. We play these roles in our own lives all the time. Sometimes we're the hero, sometimes we really need a mentor, and a lot of the time, the villain is just our own resistance to change. So here it is, the main point I really want you to get. The agitation and focus that you need for neuroplasticity, that's the initiation. That dopamine reward you get for trying, that's the boon, or the treasure. The process Dr. Huberman describes in the brain isn't just like the hero's journey. It is the hero's journey, just written in the language of neurochemistry.
Okay, so if our brains are literally wired to follow this ancient blueprint for transformation, how can we consciously step into that role? How do we actually become the hero of our own story?
Well, according to Dr. Huberman, most of us are trying to do it completely backwards. We try to change our thoughts or our feelings first, which is incredibly hard to do. He says the real control panel, the entry point, is our behavior. If you run that 5-step process in reverse, you see that changing what you do is the most direct way to change how you think and feel. And here's a brilliant, practical example of this: your own eyesight. It is a direct lever for controlling your brain's level of alertness. When you intentionally narrow your gaze to just one point, that's focal vision, you actually trigger that same state of agitated focus you need for learning. But when you deliberately expand your vision, kind of soften your eyes and take in the whole room, that's panoramic vision, you signal to your brain that it's time to chill out. This is not a metaphor, it's a direct, physical control panel for your brain. Just by changing how you look at the world, you can manage your internal state. You can consciously choose when to step into the trial of focused learning and when to return to a state of rest. That control, that is the elixir, the treasure you bring back from the journey.
So there you have it. The path to transformation, whether you're looking at an ancient myth or modern neuroscience, is all about embracing a struggle to come out changed on the other side. This journey isn't just for epic heroes in stories or leading scientists. It's a fundamental blueprint that's available to every single one of us. So the only question left is, what story are you going to build?